This box set practically radiates that wonderful early 2000s bargain bin charm, the kind of thing you'd find at a supermarket checkout next to a rack of AA batteries and novelty flashlights. Let's dig into it piece by piece. Overall object. You're showing a Science Fiction Classics 50 movie pack DVD box set. It's one of those massive public domain compilations that companies pumped out in the mid-2000s, usually sourced from old 1950s to 70s prints with all the glorious scratches, hiss, and weird edits intact. The packaging is fairly thick, because inside there are 12 DVDs crammed with films. The material looks a bit worn, subtle corner fraying, small edge dents, and a soft crease in the lower right area. This fits the age of these sets. They were never built like premium box collections. Design and photography. The front design is pure retro science fiction pulp aesthetic. Color palette, deep reds and blacks dominate. The designers wanted that classic, ominous alien tone. The grain in the photo shows that the print isn't high quality, which is typical of these releases. Main image. The large, shadow-soaked face of an alien/humanoid is plastered across the bottom half. The dark pooled eye sockets and smoothed-out facial structure give it a slightly unsettling, cheap horror feel. This image is almost certainly a stock photo or clip art piece, used for maximum mood without paying for anything licensed. Typography, science fiction in thick, warm yellow sans serif, very 2004 DVD bargain bin energy. Classics tucked underneath in a thinner font. 50 movie pack banner in the top right, leaning into the idea that quantity trumps format quality. This is functional packaging, not luxurious design. Movie list. The front teases some of the titles included, which tells you immediately what kind of set this is. Classic B-movies, public domain oddities, low-budget monster flicks. A few standouts. Robot Monster, infamous for the man in a gorilla suit wearing a diving helmet as Roman. The Wasp Woman, Roger Corman classic about cosmetic experiments gone very wrong. Mesa of Lost Women, wonderfully bizarre, with narration that sounds like someone reading the script off a napkin. The Snow Creature, early E.T. movie fare, shot like a detective procedural. The Galaxy Invader, a backyard production filmed in the woods with an alien suit that looks hot glued together. These collections mix science fiction with horror, jungle adventure, space paranoia, and monster schlock. That eclectic chaos is the whole appeal. Condition and context. The carpet texture and natural soft lighting suggest you photographed this at home, handheld, shallow depth of field, slightly warm tone. The box is lying flat, the angle slightly diagonal, giving a casual "I just found this in my collection" vibe. The right edge shows an open flap, maybe the inner cardboard sleeve or a second box next to it. You can see a piece of beige folder or envelope peeking in. There's also a bit of authenticity in the wear. The bottom black band with the text "Hours of Science Fiction Fun" on 12 DVDs is slightly rubbed. These sets were printed cheaply, so the ink scuffs easily. What the picture communicates. It's basically a time capsule from the budget DVD era, a treasure trove of low-budget films, weird effects, and the kind of storytelling where half the movie is stock footage and the other half is people staring at blinking lights. Anyone who collects physical media will instantly recognize the charm. It's not about remastered quality, but the experience of diving into 50 strange films you couldn't find anywhere else. The back of this box set is a glorious wall of tiny text, the kind of design where the publisher basically shouts, "Look! 50 movies. Please ignore the print quality. Let's walk through what's going on here." Overall look. The back uses a red to orange gradient, familiar from mid-2000s discount DVD packaging. The text is arranged into mirrored columns, left column, movie titles. Right column, starring actors. It's laid out like an old VHS rental list, dense, functional, no frills. The cardboard shows some wear around the edges, especially the left flap where the outer sleeve meets the inner box, pretty normal for this type of set. The barcode at the bottom left and the Treeline Films logo at the bottom right confirm this is one of the classic Treeline public domain bundles. Movie list details. This set mixes science fiction, jungle adventure, ancient world epics, and pure B-movie oddities. A sample: The Incredible Petrified World. Classic cheap underwater exploration film, shot in what looks like a high school swimming pool. Robot Monster. The legendary gorilla suit plus diving helmet villain movie. Gamera the Invincible. The American cut of the first Gamera movie, heavily re-edited. Hercules Against the Moon Men. Dubbed Sword and Sandals Chaos featuring space aliens with big rock heads. The Brain Machine. A pseudo-psychological science fiction thriller with more talk than action. Zonter, The Thing from Venus. A Larry Buchanan remake of It Conquered the World, famously cheap and charming. These are public domain staples. Any collector who buys these sets knows exactly the type of weirdness they're getting. Actors featured. The right column is basically a who's who of mid-century B cinema. John Carradine. Appears in every bargain pack ever made. Basil Rathbone. The most prestigious name here, though the movies they can legally include weren't his finest hours. Peter Graves. Shows up in half the 50s science fiction catalog. Killers from Space is one of his most famous B-movies. Brandon Lee. This is interesting, his film Laser Mission 1989 appears, which is one of the newer movies in the pack. Yoko Tani, Dean Fredericks, Claude Rains, Rod Taylor. Some genuinely solid actors mixed in with the usual cult movie regulars. It feels like Treeline wanted to remind you, these are real actors. See? Names you recognize. Condition and photography. Your photo captures several things: left flap damage, the cardboard sleeve is tearing slightly where the inner box rubs against the outer shell over time. Surface scuffs, tiny stress lines around the edges, especially near the corners. Lighting, soft, natural, slightly warm, giving good clarity to the text. Angle, you shot it slightly downward, with depth of field keeping the text sharp but softening the background carpet. It's all very true to how these box sets age. They're not built like Criterion releases. Packaging identity. Treeline Films box sets are iconic among collectors of cheap science fiction DVDs. They were sold everywhere: Walmart bargain bins, gas stations, supermarket budget racks, bookstores with discount media tables. They were especially popular because they crammed dozens of films onto a handful of discs, usually with heavy compression. But the charm comes from the films themselves: bizarre, dated, sometimes brilliant, sometimes laughably strange. This picture shows the inside of the box's outer sleeve, the part you usually see only once when you open the package for the first time and then forget it even exists. But here you've actually got a small piece of DVD history, written in that bombastic tone only budget science fiction box sets can get away with. Here's the detailed breakdown. Layout and visual style. The black background contrasts with the red front cover. The two large gray circles, one at the top left, one at the bottom left, are glue marks or printing defects, very common on these inexpensive box sets. They're not decoration, just factory leftovers. The typography matches the outside. The 4-section titles appear in orange. Monster Madness, Distant Worlds, Legends of Fantasy, Space and Beyond. It's pure marketing copy in pulp style, as if someone tried to make every film in the box sound better than it actually is. Charming, and completely in line with Treeline Films. The text itself, analyzed. This is an over-the-top description of what you're buying: 50 public domain films that vary from cult classics to B-horror to someone shot this in their backyard. Monster Madness. They list some of the most iconic titles: Wasp Woman, Carmen, Always Fun, Gamera the Invincible, The American Cut, The Snow Creature, Horrors of Spider Island, Robot Monster. The blurb sells it as terror, but anyone familiar with Robot Monster knows it's more like terror mixed with laughter. Distant Worlds. Here they focus on space travel and planetary crises. They mention Crash of the Moons, Voyage to a Prehistoric Planet, Destroy All Worlds, Cosmos, War of the Planets, Battle of the Worlds. Many of these are Italian or Soviet American productions re-edited for US audiences. Half are charmingly confusing. Legends of Fantasy. This is the Sword and Sandals section, with several films featuring Hercules, Goliath, and similar mythic characters. They toss in Moon Men, Captive Women, Babylonian Tyrants, Devils of the Desert, Amazon Queens. It's typical for these 50 packs to slip in fantasy even though the box is called Science Fiction Classics. These films are usually dubbed, roughly edited, and wildly dramatic. Space and Beyond. This is basically the everything left over category. They mention Teenagers from Outer Space, Menace from Outer Space, Killers from Space, Phantom from Space, Assignment, Outer Space. They Came from Beyond Space. The repetitive titles say everything. In old science fiction, space was always from space, never simply space. Condition and photography. Your photo captures several nice details. Focus is centered on the middle of the text, with gentle background blur. You can see the folded cardboard structure on the right side. Lighting is natural and warm, revealing the matte print texture. Some edge wear is visible, totally normal for DVD sets from this era. What you're looking at. This is the Disc 1/Side A insert card from the Science Fiction Classics 50 movie pack. Each disc in the set came with a square card like this listing the films on that specific side. They were usually tucked loosely inside the big multi-disc case. Your photo shows Disc 1. Side A. Movies listed. 1. The Incredible Petrified World. A diving bell goes missing, the rescue attempt fails, and instead of resurfacing, the crew winds up in a labyrinth of underwater caverns. They meet a survivor of a shipwreck, discover they're trapped underground, and desperately search for oxygen flow and a way out. Star, John Carradine. Rating, unrated. This film is pure 1950s low-budget exploration science fiction, with lots of cave scenes shot on studio sets disguised as underwater grottos. 2. Queen of the Amazons. A woman sets out on a jungle expedition to find her missing lover, Greg. Her guide sees her, and all women, as dead weight, which is very much the ear talking. Along the way, they fight poachers, lions, locusts, and eventually discover a hidden tribe of Amazon warriors. The plot teases the question, is Greg kidnapped by a white goddess, or did he go willingly? Star, Patricia Morrison. Rating, unrated. This is a 1940s jungle adventure with lots of stock footage and romantic drama, the type of movie that always shows up in public domain packs. 3. The Robot Monster. A classic of accidental comedy, Roman, the gorilla-suited alien with a diving helmet, is sent to Earth to prepare for an invasion. His job is to collect human specimens and analyze their weaknesses, but he gets confused and ultimately fails pretty spectacularly. Star, George Nader. Rating, unrated. This is one of the most infamous B-movies ever made, earnest, absurd, and unforgettable. These cards helped you keep track of what was on which side, since the discs themselves were double-sided and often only had minimal print on the hub. Physical characteristics. You can see all the classic traits of these tree-lined disc cards: thin, soft cardboard, almost like cereal box thickness. Matte coating, slightly fuzzy texture, not glossy. Square shape, around 12 to 13 centimeters wide, designed to simply rest behind the disc tray. Aging marks, faint corner wear, slight bending around the bottom edge. Printing quality, the text isn't crisp. Small letters show dotting from low-resolution printing. These inserts were never meant to be premium collectibles, but they have become unintentionally charming artifacts of the budget DVD era. Design details. The card keeps the same theme as the outer box, red gradient background. 50 movie pack logo in the top left corner. Science Fiction Classics, DVD collection, beneath that. Bold Disc 1/Side A centered. 3 short plot summaries with star credits. Everything typeset in small white letters. Even the style feels like it belongs in a supermarket DVD bin from 2004 to 2007. Treeline always marketed these sets like a library of lost treasures, even when half the movies were shot for the price of a sandwich. What the card contains. Disc 1. Side B. Movies, film summaries, explained. 1. She Gods of Shark Reef. A 1950s adventure filmed in Hawaii. The plot centers on 2 brothers, one good, one a convict, who becomes stranded on an island ruled by a group of ritualistic native women. These women dive for pearls and choose sacrificial victims for the sharks. The good brother falls for a local woman and plans escape, while the convict brother attempts to steal the pearls. Star, Bill Cord. Rating, unrated. It's a classic example of 50s tropical pulp, exoticism, rituals, stock footage, and moral contrast between brothers. 2. The Amazing Transparent Man. This one is a short, tight science fiction thriller. A deranged ex-military officer, Paul Krenner, forces a scientist to create invisibility using atomic radiation. His plan is to build an invisible army and sell its services to the highest bidder. They break a criminal out of prison and turn him invisible so he can steal radium, and then the story takes a darker twist. Star, Marguerite Chapman. Rating, unrated. The movie mixes film noir elements with atomic age paranoia. 3. The Atomic Brain. A wealthy, aging woman hires 2 young women with the secret purpose of transplanting her brain into one of their bodies. Atomic science, body snatching, and mad science tropes all collide here. Star, Bradford Dillman. Rating, unrated. This film is sometimes also known as Monstrosity, and it has that unmistakable 1950s brain transplant B-movie atmosphere. The card has the exact same dimensions and finish as the previous one, a matched pair for Disc 1. This card is the Disc 2/Side A. Insert from the same 50 movie set, and this time Treeline switches the color scheme to purple, which is their way of visually marking a new disc. Let's break it down with the same clear structure as before. Disc identification. Disc 2. Side A. Movies. 1. Horrors of Spider Island. A plane headed for Singapore crashes on a remote island. The survivors are a troupe of dancers, who settle into a strange tropical routine involving minimal clothing and beach living. The piece ends when their manager is bitten by a radioactive spider, transforming him into a wild, fanged creature who becomes violent and unpredictable. Star, Harold Marash. Rating, unrated. This movie is an odd mix of cheesecake, monster horror, and jungle adventure. It has a cult following because of how bizarrely it shifts tone. 2. The Wasp Woman. The card spells it the Wasso Woman, but it's definitely the Wasp Woman, Roger Corman's classic about a cosmetic company owner desperately seeking youth and beauty. She turns to Dr. Zenthrop, who uses an experimental wasp enzyme to reverse aging. The treatment works, until it turns her into a flesh-eating wasp creature. Star, Susan Cabot. Rating, unrated. This one is a staple in every science fiction public domain pack, and deservedly so. It's fast, fun, and iconic in the atomic mutation genre. The bright purple background stands out. Treeline alternates colors between discs, usually red, purple, green, blue, to help owners keep track. This is the Disc 2/Side B card, keeping the same purple theme as Side A. This one is a perfect example of Treeline's habit of pairing films that are technically different movies, but actually built from the same Soviet science fiction footage. Let's go through it cleanly and clearly. Disc identification. Disc 2. Side B. Movies. 1. Voyage to the prehistoric planet. A spaceship orbits Venus with a crew including Marcia, played by Faith Demerg. On Venus' surface are 2 astronauts and a robot companion exploring the terrain. They're observed from afar by Professor Hartman, played by Basil Rathbone, who never actually appears on Venus because his scenes were cheaply shot and inserted later. The explorers battle prehistoric creatures and lose their robot in a volcanic eruption that consumes the planet. Star, Basil Rathbone. Rating, unrated. This cut plays the story fairly straight as a science fiction survival tale, with the Soviet footage stitched together with US scenes. 2. Voyage to the Planet of Prehistoric Women. This is a recut of the same Soviet material, but with an added storyline about telepathic Venusian women. The rescuing astronauts face dangers from prehistoric monsters while a mysterious group of alien women watches them from afar, worshipping a pterodactyl named Terra. Star, Mamie Van Doren. Rating, unrated. This version is more surreal and mythic, focused on the alien women and their rituals. It's a curious hybrid of science fiction and fantasy. It fits perfectly with the archival vibe of your earlier images, a full documentation of each disc card as an individual artifact. This one is Disc 3/Side A. And we've moved into the green card territory, Treeline's way of marking the next disc in the set. These color shifts make the inserts almost collectible in their own right, like low-budget trading cards from the atomic age. Let's explore this card in detail. Disc identification. Disc 3. Side A. Movies. 1. King of Kong Island. A team of scientists arrives on Kong Island to implant mind control devices into gorillas, building an army of unstoppable primates as one does in 1960s cinema. Their plan falls apart when a descendant of King Kong arrives. Chaos ensues, and things go properly off the rails. Star, Brad Harris. Rating, unrated. This movie isn't directly related to King Kong, despite the title. It's an Italian adventure film heavy on jungle settings, gorilla costumes, and mad science tropes. 2. Bride of the Gorilla. Raymond Burr of Perry Mason fame stars as Barney Chavez, a plantation manager in the South American jungle. He murders his employer to pursue the employer's wife. A native sorceress witnesses the crime and curses him, causing him to transform into a murderous gorilla at night. Star, Raymond Burr. Rating, unrated. It's a noir-style jungle horror film, written by none other than a young Ed Wood, which explains the oddly earnest dialogue and strange pacing. A cult gem. Unlike Disc 1 red and Disc 2 purple, this card is green, marking the beginning of Disc 3. Treeline typically cycles through red to purple to green to blue across discs. It gives each insert its own visual identity. Cinematic flavor. Disc 3 leans toward the jungle horror meets transformation myth theme, curses, gorillas, mind control, and ethical disaster. It's a mashup of early monster cinema and pulp exoticism. These cards don't just list film, they unintentionally capture the tone of cheap cinema trying very hard to feel epic. Here we have Disc 3/Side B, still in the same green theme, and now firmly in the Japanese kaiju territory. This is the Gamera side of the disc, and the tone shifts from Jungle Curses Disc 3/Side A to Flying Turtles, Space Brain Eaters, and Psychic Children. Beautiful chaos. Let's walk through it clearly and in detail. Disc identification. Disc 3. Side B. Movies. 1. Attack of the Monsters. Two boys and a girl discover a flying saucer. The boys board it, and it transports them to a mysterious planet that shares Earth's orbit but is hidden behind the sun. There they encounter telepathic alien women who intend to eat their brains. A giant turtle-like creature named Gamera arrives to rescue them, but only after battling another monster, Gyron, a knife-headed alien beast. Star, Christopher Murphy. Rating, unrated. This is Gamera vs. Gyron 1969, re-released under this alternative US title. A classic of the children-befriending kaiju era. 2. Gamera the Invincible. The only Gamera film to receive a US theatrical release under this title, which explains the unusual spelling. Nuclear testing awakens Gamera, the giant flying turtle, from under Arctic ice. He travels the world wreaking havoc while scientists and military forces scramble to stop him. A young boy forms an emotional bond with Gamera, suggesting the creature might have a sympathetic side. Star, Brian Donlevy. Rating, unrated. This is the 1965 Americanized edit of the original Gamera, the giant monster. A true kaiju landmark. Cinematic tone. Disc 3 is split into two clear thematic halves. Side A. Gorilla Curses, Tropical Madness, Voodoo Transformations. Side B. Alien Telepathy, Children in Space, Flying Turtles, Kaiju Warfare. A perfect transition from pulp jungle mythology to atomic age monster cinema, all stuffed onto a single double-sided DVD. Now we've reached Disc 4/Side A. And with it the blue cards, the next color in Treeline's rotating palette. Red, purple, green, blue. This one is a glorious pairing, campy Martian Christmas chaos alongside teenage alien invaders and giant lobsters. Let's break it down. Disc identification. Disc 4. Side A. Movies. Santa Claus conquers the Martians. Martian children are obsessed with Earth television, especially shows that feature Santa Claus. Their parents travel to Earth to kidnap Santa so he can bring Christmas spirit to Mars. Two Earth children get caught up in the mission, ultimately helping Santa spread joy among Martian youth, much to the frustration of the grumpy Martian adults. Star, Pia Zadora. As a child actor. Rating, unrated. This is a cult classic of so bad it's wonderful sci-fi holiday cinema. Cheap sets, foam-padded Martian helmets, and one of the earliest screen appearances of Pia Zadora. Teenagers from outer space. Martians arrive on Earth to use it as breeding grounds for the Gargon, a species of giant lobsters. One Martian, Derek, discovers that humans have intelligence and conscience, and rebels against his people to save Earth. He warns humanity, becomes entangled in teenage romance, and ultimately sacrifices himself to destroy the invading threat. Star, David Love. Rating, unrated. A classic example of earnest, low-budget 50s alien invasion cinema. Known for paper-thin special effects, stilted acting, but surprising emotional sincerity. Cinematic pairing. This sidely ends into quirky alien encounters with Earth life. Martians kidnapping Santa to fix interplanetary depression. Martians unleashing giant radioactive lobsters to conquer Earth. It's 1960s science fiction at its most innocent, absurd, and oddly charming. Here we have Disc 4/Side B, continuing the blue theme, and this side is devoted entirely to Rocky Jones, Space Ranger, one of the earliest American TV sci-fi series. Instead of two different movies, this card features two feature-length episodes compiled from the TV show. Let's explore it fully. Disc identification. Disc 4. Side B. Both of these movies star Richard Crane, as noted on the card. 1. Rocky Jones, Space Ranger, Crash of the Moons. This is a two-part episode from the Rocky Jones, Space Ranger TV series, 1954. The story: two inhabited planets orbit dangerously close to each other, threatening catastrophic collision. Rocky Jones and his crew attempt to evacuate civilians and broker peace, but they face political resistance, sabotage, and emotional loyalties. The show was cancelled after one season due to the high cost of special effects. Star: Richard Crane. Rating: unrated. While primitive by modern standards, this series took space travel surprisingly seriously for early television. 2. Rocky Jones, Space Ranger, Menace from Outer Space. A fast-approaching comet threatens Earth with annihilation. Rocky Jones and the Space Rangers must intercept it before impact, but competing forces complicate the mission. It's framed as a heroic, high-stakes mission to save Earth, full of 1950s optimism, earnest dialogue, and cardboard control panels. Star: Richard Crane. Rating: unrated. Both Rocky Jones titles are historically interesting, some of the earliest American serialized space adventures on film. Cinematic tone of Side B. This side represents a different flavor of science fiction, serial television space adventure, rather than full-length theatrical films. Typical features of Rocky Jones, Space Ranger: pulp space travel, rocket cockpit drama, moral dilemmas, Earth must be saved by good-hearted astronauts, wholesome seriousness and stiff uniforms, a completely unironic belief in space diplomacy. It's one of the earliest precursors to formats that later became Flash Gordon, Star Trek, and Saturday morning space adventure shows. This is Disc 5/Side A, and Treeline shifts the color palette again, now into burnt orange, signaling the next disc. And this time, we've moved firmly into the sword and sandal science fiction crossover era, where Hercules fights, not just mythic beasts, but aliens from the moon. Wonderful, glorious nonsense. Let's unpack it. Disc identification. Disc 5. Side A. Movies. 1. Hercules against the Moonmen. An alien race lands in ancient Greece, taking control of the city of Samar. They kidnap children for human sacrifice. The Queen of Samar sides with the aliens to rule the world. Hercules arrives, does Herculean things, fights glowing rock aliens, and saves the population. Star: Alan Steele. Rating: unrated. This is the infamous peplum sci-fi mashup where Hercules fights extraterrestrial rock creatures. It's an iconic so bad it's amazing cult movie. 2. Hercules and the Captive Women. Hercules saves a woman from a monstrous creature, then discovers she is from Atlantis. He travels there, fights more monsters, faces cruel rulers, and eventually watches Atlantis collapse in cataclysm. Star: Reg Park. Rating: unrated. A mix of Greek myth, fantasy, and apocalyptic science fiction complete with volcano eruptions, prophecy, and costume drama. Cinematic tone of this side. This card showcases what made the later discs especially fun, not just science fiction, but mythology mashed with aliens, Atlantis, mind control, glowing rock creatures, and ancient rulers aiding invaders from space. It reflects the 1960s trend of blending epic myth and low-budget science fiction, especially in Italian cinema. These movies sit somewhere between Jason and the Argonauts, Flash Gordon, and a school play with the wrong props. Now we're on disc 5/side B. Still in the same burnt orange style, and we remain in the realm of peplum cinema, the sword and sandal subgenre where Hercules is less a mythic Greek hero and more of a wandering diplomatic muscle man with occasional memory loss and a weakness for sorceresses. Let's unpack it clearly. Disc identification. Disc 5. Side B. Movies. 1. Hercules and the Tyrants of Babylon. Peter Lupus, yes, from Mission Impossible, plays Hercules, who must rescue the Queen of the Hellenes after she is kidnapped and enslaved by Babylonian rulers. Expect kidnapped royalty, intrigue, torture, palace conspiracies, and of course, sweaty prison escapes. Star, Peter Lupus. Rating, unrated. It's classic 1960s Italian myth dramatic spectacle, with grand sets, dramatic speeches, and lots of sand. 2. Hercules Unchained. Steve Reeves stars in this sequel to Hercules. While traveling on a diplomatic mission to Thebes, Hercules drinks from an enchanted spring, loses his memory, and ends up enchanted by Queen Omphale, who keeps him in her pleasure gardens. Meanwhile, his young companion Ulysses tries to help him regain his identity, while Thebes inches towards civil war, and Hercules' wife faces danger. Star, Steve Reeves. Rating, unrated. This is probably the most famous and highest-budget Hercules film in this DVD pack. Tone and theme of Disc 5. Disc 5 leans heavily toward mythological adventure with mild fantasy elements, which Treeline counts as science fiction classics, because Hercules fights aliens from the moon, Side A. Atlantis and Enchanted Queens count as proto-science fiction. Ancient Babylon with royal kidnappings, well, close enough. It's a stretch, but that's part of the charm of these B-movie collections. Genre boundaries were more theoretical than real. Here we shift into Disc 6/Side A. And Treeline changes color again, this time to black, which gives this insert a noticeably different mood. The black background instantly feels more serious, more cinematic, even though the contents are wonderfully bizarre jungle and spider madness. Let's dig in. Disc identification. Disc 6. Side A. We're now back in pulp jungle territory, plane crashes, treasure, lost expeditions, bizarre laboratories, and spider-human hybrids. A perfect mix of adventure and B-movie science fiction horror. Movies. 1. Lost Jungle. Ruth and her father are lost in the African wilderness on a scientific expedition. A man named Beatty travels to Africa to rescue them, but his plane crashes in a violent storm. He survives and desperately continues his search, only to face a band of greedy villains seeking gold, and a few wild beasts along the way. Star, Clyde Beatty. Rating, unrated. This is an early jungle adventure film from the 1930s, blending safari footage, stage scenes, and animal trainer Clyde Beatty playing himself. More adventure than science fiction, but full of drama and spectacle. 2. Mesa of Lost Women. A scientist named Arana runs a secret laboratory on Zarpa Mesa in Mexico, where he is breeding giant spiders, dwarf creatures, and genetically engineered superwomen infused with spider venom. His goal, to create an army of enhanced spider-human hybrids. Star, Jackie Coogan. Rating, unrated. This film is a cult classic of weird science fiction horror. Awkward, surreal, heavily narrated, and atmospheric. The score and lab sequences give it a haunting strangeness. Tone and film pairing. This side leans toward pulpy jungle adventure crossed with early experimental science fiction, blending lost expeditions, gold hunting villains, secret laboratories, spider-human hybrids, animal trainers and mutated women. It's cinema from an era where any scientific idea, no matter how absurd, could be turned into a movie with some narration and a fog machine. This is Disc 6/Side B, sticking with the same black background as Side A, but now we shift from jungle spiders and mutant women to space journalism and Cold War laser espionage. Quite a dramatic tonal jump. Here's the structured breakdown. Disc identification. Disc 6. Side B. This side blends early Italian space adventure with late 80s Cold War action, an unusual pairing that shows how these packs stretch the science fiction classics concept as far as possible. Movies. 1. Assignment Outer Space. Rick Van Nutter plays a pushy but earnest reporter assigned to observe a space mission. He causes conflict with the ship's captain and competes for the affection of space navigator Lucy, played by Gabriella Farinen. But when Earth faces destruction from the runaway spaceship on a collision course, the crew must put aside drama and work together. Star, Rick Van Nutter. Rating, unrated. This is a 1960 Italian science fiction film, Spacemen, full of model ships, philosophical dialogue, and optimistic space politics. 2. Laser Mission. Brandon Lee, before The Crow, stars as a mercenary named Gold, hired by the CIA to prevent the KGB from obtaining a kidnapped laser weapons scientist. He must retrieve the scientist and keep a stolen diamond from being used to power a world-threatening laser weapon. Star, Brandon Lee. Rating, unrated. This is a 1989 action thriller with espionage, jungle chases, laser weaponry, and Lee doing early martial arts work. Not traditional science fiction, but included because lasers equals science fiction in budget box set rules. Tone and theme of Side B. A shift toward journalistic space missions, runaway spacecraft disaster, Cold War spy action, laser technology and diamond-powered weapons. Side B represents the most modern entries in the box so far, especially Laser Mission, the newest film in the whole set, 1989. This disc blends early idealistic space science fiction 1960 with late 80s action science thriller genre bending. Here we are at disc 7/Side A. And Treeline brings us back to deep red, reminiscent of disc 1. We're back in pure 1950s alien-era science fiction, not Jungle, not Hercules, not Cold War espionage, but classic flying saucers, truth serums, atomic fear and invisible extraterrestrial beings. This card feels very core science fiction. Let's walk through it clearly and precisely. Disc identification. Disc 7/Side A. Both films revolve around alien visitors, post-World War II atomic anxiety, secret government agencies, and that lingering 1950s belief that aliens might already be among us. Movies. 1. Killers from Space. A nuclear scientist, Doug Martin, mysteriously disappears after his plane crashes during an investigation of an atomic bomb test site. When he reappears at a military base, he is detained as a suspected spy. Under truth serum, he reveals he was abducted by aliens who plan to control Earth, using animals, insects, and mind control to conquer the planet. But naturally, nobody believes him. Star, Peter Graves. Rating, unrated. Classic 1950s atomic age paranoia, with large-eyed aliens and dramatic government interrogation scenes. 2. Phantom from Space. A space-suited alien lands in Santa Monica, California. After a tense encounter, 2 humans die, triggering a manhunt. Authorities chase the alien, but when he removes his suit, he becomes completely invisible. Now, Federal agents must try to catch an unseen extraterrestrial being, while debating whether he is hostile, or simply frightened. Star, Ted Cooper. Rating, unrated. A slow, atmospheric science fiction thriller, told more like a police investigation than a monster movie. Thematic tone of this side. Disc 7/A pulls us firmly into the 1950s science fiction sweet spot, where stories were full of atomic bomb test sites, government suspicion and truth serums, Martian paranoia, aliens who might be invisible, or quietly observing Earth. It's the era when science fiction became a metaphor for Cold War fear, doubt, secrecy, and the unknown among us. This is Disc 7/Side B, and we stay in the same deep red card style as Side A, but this time the mood shifts from alien spies and invisibility to cryptids and lost species expeditions. Here we get White Pongo and the Snow Creature, both films dealing with the search for legendary, possibly evolutionary, missing link creatures. Let's explore it in the same detailed way. Disc identification. Disc 7. Side B. Both are adventure science fiction hybrids that blend jungle exploration, scientific expeditions, and prehistoric creature theories. Movies. 1. White Pongo. A scientific expedition sets out to track down a legendary white gorilla which may represent a key evolutionary link. An undercover detective, Jeffrey Bishop, Richard Fraser, joins the mission in search of a criminal, and begins to suspect that the criminal may actually be leading the entire expedition. Star, Richard Fraser. Rating, unrated. A jungle mystery adventure film built around the myth of a white gorilla as a possible missing link. 2. The Snow Creature. Frank Parrish, accompanied by skeptical photojournalist Peter Wells, leads an expedition to the Himalayas to study rare plant life. Their plans change immediately when the chief guide's wife is kidnapped by a Yeti. What starts as a rescue mission soon turns into a scientific quest. They capture a Yeti and bring it back to the United States for study, with consequences. Star, Paul Langton. Rating, unrated. This is one of the earliest American films featuring the Yeti, blending journalism, science, and cryptid horror. Theme of Disc 7/Side B. This side is all about legendary beings believed to bridge evolutionary or mythological gaps, the jungle missing link, White Pongo, the Himalayan Yeti, the Snow Creature. Both films use the same story formula, expedition to creature discovery to capture to return to scientific or moral consequences. This card is pure 1940s-50s cryptid cinema, wrapped in dusty adventure, safari footage, and speculative science. Here we're at Disc 8/Side A, and Treeline brings back the purple card design, just like Disc 2, but now the content is deep into the Son of Hercules subgenre, where historical drama, myth, fantasy, and ancient world spectacle all swirl together into something that qualifies as science fiction mostly because there's a dragon somewhere. Let's explore it clearly. Disc identification. Disc 8. Side A. These are both part of a loosely connected film package marketed as The Sons of Hercules, a syndicated TV series in the 1960s that branded various Italian peplum films under the Hercules and Sons umbrella. Movies. 1. Son of Hercules, The Land of Darkness. Hercules, or one of his sons, falls for the daughter of a dethroned king. The kingdom is ruled by an evil queen, who captures Hercules and tries to have him torn apart by wild elephants, literally. He survives, bonds with his love, and eventually fights lions, bears, and a dragon with his chubby sidekick. A volcanic eruption destroys the evil realm. Star, Dan Vadas. Rating, unrated. A wild mix of romance, fantasy, gladiator action, and disaster spectacle. 2. Devil of the Desert against the son of Hercules. A nobleman is killed by a tyrant. His daughter is enslaved, humiliated, and forced into servitude. She's eventually rescued by Hercules, a hero of the people known for his courage, who joins the rebellion against the cruel despot. Hercules does what Hercules does best, defeats oppression using muscles and moral superiority. Star, Kirk Morris. Rating, unrated. Less fantastical, more desert rebellion and swordplay, but still marketed under the Hercules theme package. Tone and context of this disc. Disc 8/Side A stays squarely in mythic fantasy rather than science fiction, but Treeline includes these films anyway because they feature Hercules, or sons of Hercules. There are dragons, eruptions, and wild beasts. The rights were cheap. They needed to fill 50 slots. Good enough. Now we're on Disc 8/Side B, and we remain in the purple card theme, but this time the tone shifts sharply away from Hercules mythology and back into pure classic alien science fiction. This card captures two excellent examples of 1950s and 60s alien communication gone wrong movies, where idealistic humans try to help extraterrestrials, and inevitably regret it. This is a strong pairing. Let's lay it out clearly. Disc identification. Disc 8. Side B. Two films with similar themes, mysterious alien messages. Human scientists making contact. Idealism turning to invasion. Warnings about technology, diplomacy, and manipulation. Movies. 1. First spaceship on Venus. Scientists examine debris from the Tunguska meteor explosion of 1908, and discover it wasn't a meteor at all, but part of an alien recording device. The signal traces back to Venus. A spaceship called Cosmocrator is launched to investigate. On the journey, messages are decoded, revealing that the aliens had once planned an invasion of Earth, but destroyed themselves with their own weapons first. It becomes a moral question: should contact be attempted, or is this a warning? Star, Yoko Tani. Rating, unrated. German-East European co-production, visually impressive, philosophical, atmospheric, one of the more ambitious films in this box set. 2. Zonter, the Thing from Mars. A well-meaning scientist helps an alien named Zonter make contact with Earth, believing it can help solve humanity's problems. Instead, Zonter reveals its true intentions, seizing control of the world's energy supply, implanting mind control devices into global leaders, using human trust as a weapon. A story of technology, manipulation, and how helpful aliens rarely are helpful. Star, John Agar. Rating, unrated. This is a Larry Buchanan remake of It Conquered the World, created on a microscopic budget, but oddly fascinating. Thematic tone of this side. This side is all about alien contact, human hubris, and science as both hope and warning. Key themes: do aliens want to help, or control? Can science decode extraterrestrial messages, or awaken disaster? Can idealism survive manipulation? It's classic Cold War-era speculative science fiction, metaphor-heavy, visual, talkative, and strangely haunting. Here we're on Disc 9/Side A. And Treeline returns to the green color scheme, similar to Disc 3, but the mood here is very different. We shift away from Hercules and alien missions and arrive in the realm of invisible psychic killers, paranormal experiments, and a downed alien being hunted by angry rednecks. Disc 9/Side A is built around two cult favorites that are strange, low-budget, and very public domain science fiction mystery. Let's unpack it fully. Disc identification. Disc 9. Side A. Movies. 1. The astral factor. A convicted strangler studies the paranormal in prison and discovers how to make himself invisible using astral projection. He escapes, determined to hunt down the 5 women who testified against him. A police lieutenant, played by Robert Foxworth, races to protect the women and stop the invisible killer. Star, Robert Foxworth. Rating, unrated. This one blends crime thriller, paranormal science fiction, and revenge plot, a strange hybrid of detective mystery and psychic horror. 2. The Galaxy Invader. An alien crash lands in a rural area and tries to survive quietly, but is relentlessly hunted by greedy, drunk, small-town locals. Rather than being a villain, the alien is almost sympathetic, while the humans become the real monsters. Star, Richard Dishel. Rating, unrated. Low budget, regional, atmospheric, one of those films that feels accidentally haunting. A favorite among bargain DVD collectors. Tone and theme of Disc 9/Side A. This side focuses on paranormal human-based science fiction, not space travel, not mythology, but astral invisibility. Psychic powers. Alien visitor hunted by humans. Moral reversal. Human versus alien. It's science fiction as social commentary, especially The Galaxy Invader, which asks, who is truly the monster? Now we're on Disc 9/Side B, still in the green card design, same tone as Side A. But this time the mood shifts from psychic killers and downed aliens to classic high-concept science fiction, one film about an alien planet invading Earth from orbit, the other about drilling to the center of the Earth. This side is pure vintage speculative science fiction, planetary threats, saucer warfare, deep Earth expeditions, the kind of pulp ideas that shaped early 20th century science fiction magazines. Let's unpack it in detail, just like the others. Disc identification. Disc 9. Side B. Movies. 1. Battle of the Worlds. Earth seems doomed when a rogue planet appears on a collision course. But unexpectedly, it settles into orbit instead. Soon, flying saucers emerge from this mysterious planet and begin a full-scale attack on Earth's outer space defenses. Chaos follows, led by alien control, war, and a battle of astronomical strategy. Star, Claude Rains. Rating, unrated. A cerebral Italian science fiction film, philosophical, dramatic, strangely atmospheric, and starring Claude Rains, the most prestigious actor in this entire DVD pack. 2. Unknown World. A team of scientists builds an enormous drilling machine called the Canyon Express and begins an expedition into the Earth's interior. They hope to find a safe refuge for humanity in case nuclear war makes the surface uninhabitable. They descend into volcanic caverns, subterranean oceans, and unknown geological realms searching for a livable underground world. Star, Bruce Kellogg. Rating, unrated. Not action-heavy, but pure speculative what-if? Science fiction, an early cinematic descent into Earth's core. Tone and themes of Disc 9/Side B. This side focuses on classic speculative science, rogue planet in Earth orbit, flying saucers, cosmic threat, deep Earth expedition, 1950s fear of nuclear catastrophe, exploration as survival. It marks a shift from monsters or myth, to big ideas. Where could humanity go? Out into space, or deep below? Disc 10/Side A introduces a new visual tone again. We return to the deep blue color scheme, similar to Disc 4. But thematically, this card dives into two very different branches of speculative cinema. Ancient sea monster mythology, Blood Tide. Psychological experimentation and medical science fiction, The Brain Machine. What connects them is terror hidden below the surface, either in the ocean, or in the mind. Let's break it down cleanly and thoroughly. Disc identification. Disc 10. Side A. Movies. 1. Blood Tide. A legendary sea monster, dormant for centuries, is accidentally awakened near a Greek island by an American archaeologist, played by James Earl Jones. Local villagers know of the myth, including its history of demanding virgin sacrifices. When the monster rises again, ancient fears return. Star, James Earl Jones. Rating, unrated. Part Greek folklore horror, part monster myth, very atmospheric, filmed on Mediterranean locations, dark, sun-washed, eerie. 2. The Brain Machine. A secret medical lab is conducting psychological experiments on human subjects, trying to probe deep into the human mind. An escaped patient possesses evidence of illegal scientific testing, but is murdered before he can expose it. The experiments continue, and things begin spiraling in psychological, ethical, and possibly paranormal directions. Star, James Best. Rating, unrated. A cerebral science fiction thriller, rooted in 1970s fears of mind control, unethical science, and government secrecy. Theme of Disc 10/Side A. This side centers on hidden terrors, ancient creature beneath the sea, scientific horror beneath the mind, archaeology versus psychology, mythic threat versus man-made threat. One is folklore horror, the other is laboratory fear, but both question how far human curiosity should go, and what happens when we disturb forces we don't understand. Disc 10/Side B keeps the same deep blue card design, but thematically it drifts into one of the strangest corners of this entire DVD collection: fantasy, prehistoric romance, tribal comedy, and caveman social theory, with hints of dragons, ape men, fire, and accidental civilization. These two films, The Wild Women of Wongo and Prehistoric Women, don't quite belong to traditional science fiction, but they sit in that weird 1950s-60s territory of fantasy anthropology, where prehistoric tribes mix with myth, dragons, and social satire. Treeline filed them under science fiction because, well, there were no other boxes. Let's unpack it clearly and with nuance. Disc identification. Disc 10. Side B. Movies. 1. The Wild Women of Wongo. On the tropical island of Wongo, the women are beautiful, but lonely. They soon learn there's a neighboring island full of handsome men. Unfortunately, that same island also hosts violent ape men who plan to steal the women as mates. A fantasy tribal comedy mixing flirtation, threat, exoticism, and surreal B-movie anthropology. Star, Jean Hawkshaw. Rating, unrated. Half romance, half jungle adventure, all wonderfully absurd. 2. Prehistoric Women. Tigri, played by Laurette Lewis, lives in a tribe of Stone Age women who kidnap men to serve as husbands and slaves. One man, Enger, escapes, learns to make fire, returns and drives off a dragon, proving the usefulness of men. This leads Tigri and Enger to invent civilization. Star, Laurette Lewis. Rating, unrated. Primitive romance, gender satire, a dragon, some light anthropology, and a touch of speculative prehistory. Theme and tonal character. Disc 10/Side B is one of the most unusual pairings in the whole set. Themes, prehistoric societies. Beauty tribes versus brute tribes. Fire, dragons, civilization. Primitive gender power struggles. Anthropological fantasy. Heavy on fantasy, light on anthropology. It doesn't fit neatly as science fiction, but it echoes one classic science fiction question: what did early humanity look like before civilization, and how might it have begun? even if these films answer that question with dragons, love triangles, and turquoise bikinis. Disc 11/Side A. And we're back to the burnt orange card color, same tone last seen on Disc 5. But tonally, this card has a very different feel. Here, we are squarely in classic alien contact cinema, with two films that explore UFOs, mind control, extraterrestrial warnings, and impending planetary disaster. This is mid-century science fiction at its pulpiest, flying saucers, scientists, and last-minute salvation. Disc identification. Disc 11. Side A. Movies. 1. They Came from Beyond Space. Based on the novel The Gods Hate Kansas, this film follows alien beings who crash their ship on the moon. Their spacecraft is damaged, so they attempt to use telepathic mind control to force Earth's scientists to repair it. But, one scientist is immune because he has a metal plate in his head, making him resistant to their control. Star, Robert Hutton. Rating, unrated. Very British, very colorful, and heavily based on the 1960s UFO fascination with telepathic aliens and lunar mysteries. 2. Warning from Space. People in Tokyo panic when UFOs appear in the skies, but these aliens are not hostile. They've come to warn humanity that a giant meteor is on a collision course with Earth. As the meteor approaches, Earth's scientists must construct a weapon to destroy it, before the atmosphere ignites. Star, Toya Mikarita. Rating, unrated. This is one of the earliest Japanese UFO films, notable for the iconic starfish-like alien designs. It mixes alien prophecy, looming disaster, and the classic 1950s theme, Will Humanity Listen When the Warnings Finally Arrive? Tone and themes of this disc. This is perhaps one of the most classically science fiction discs so far: UFO sightings, alien telepathy, mind control versus free will, meteors threatening Earth, scientists as saviors, visitors who are either manipulative or trying to save us. It's classic Cold War science fiction, full of anxiety about communication, trust, and apocalypse. Disc 11/Side B, keeping the same burnt orange card as Side A, but now we shift into vintage space exploration adventures, including one of the most iconic names in early science fiction, Buck Rogers. This card combines two classics: The Phantom Planet, shrinking astronauts, mobile planets, alien civilizations. Planet Outlaws, Buck Rogers vs. Killer Kane, frozen sleep, Saturn missions. Let's unpack it visually and thematically, just like before. Disc identification. Disc 11. Side B. Movies. 1. The Phantom Planet. A new, previously unknown planet appears in our solar system. Earth sends an expedition to investigate. They discover tiny humanoids, the people of Retin, who have technology to move their entire planet from galaxy to avoid enemies. They are under threat from giant monsters and hostile beings called Solarites. A stranded astronaut helps them fight back. Star, Dean Fredericks. Rating, unrated. Classic 1961 space pulp, shrinking humans, tiny civilizations, planet as spaceship, cosmic war. 2. Planet Outlaws. Based on Buck Rogers, starring the memorable Buster Crabbe. Buck Rogers and his friend Buddy awaken from centuries of cryogenic sleep and discover Earth under tyranny. They are recruited to help defeat the villain Killer Kane, and eventually travel to Saturn to seek aid from alien allies. Ray guns, rockets, freeze sleep, space dictators, pure earliest-era American science fiction. Star credits are slightly misprinted. It says Star, Planet Outlaws, but it should be Buster Crabbe, Constance Moore, and Jackie Moran. Rating, unrated. This is a movie edit of the original 1939 Buck Rogers serial, historic, campy, foundational. Theme and tone of Disc 11/B. This is one of the most traditional space adventure card pairs in the entire box. Shared sci-fi elements, cryogenic sleep, tiny civilizations on mobile planets, Buck Rogers space pioneering, rocket ships, Saturn voyages, alien diplomacy, planetary warfare, and cosmic disaster. It represents pure classic space pulp, the roots of later science fiction, including Star Trek, Flash Gordon, and Star Wars. Disc 12/Side A. And we're back to the black card design, last seen on Disc 6. But thematically, this is a fascinating mix. One film is a Greek sword and Amazon adventure with mild comedy and romance. The other is a truly bizarre cult film featuring a giant caveman terrorizing early 60s Palm Springs. It's a pairing of ancient world fantasy and modern-day prehistoric chaos, both featuring giants, cultures colliding, and young people stumbling into trouble. Let's explore it in detail. Disc identification. Disc 12. Side A. Movies. 1. Colossus and the Amazon Queen. Glauco, played by Rod Taylor, is the strongest man in Greece. He and his friend Pyrrho accidentally get mixed up in a pirate expedition and end up on an island of Amazons. They're captured, drugged, and used for their strength, until Glauco falls in love with the Amazon Antiope. Eventually, after battles, romance, and misunderstandings, the Amazons and Greeks begin to accept each other. Star, Rod Taylor. Rating, unrated. A light-hearted adventure film, part peplum, sword and sandal, part comedy, part romance. 2. Ego. A young woman encounters a gigantic prehistoric caveman while driving alone on a desert road near Palm Springs. She returns with her father and boyfriend to prove the creature exists. But when Ego is found, he goes on a chaotic rampage across Palm Springs, causing havoc. Ego is weird, uncomfortable, unintentionally comic, and utterly memorable. Star, Arch Hall, Jr. Rating, unrated. One of the most infamous low-budget cult films ever, loved today for how bizarre, awkward, and strangely enjoyable it is. Thematic tone. Disc 12/Side A is all about giants, both mythical and prehistoric. Misunderstood outsider characters. Human curiosity versus danger. Comedy mixed with adventure. The clash of primitive and civilized worlds. It blends ancient legend, Amazons, Greek heroes, with modern myth-making, Ego, cult backwoods caveman. One reflects the mythic past, the other the surreal imaginary present. Here the chatbot lost it. Sorry. Disc 12/Side B. Movies. Cosmos, War of the Planets. Star, John Richardson. Rating, unrated. Thematic tone, futuristic dystopia, AI domination, cosmic peril. Text as in the card. Mike Layton and his astronaut team land on a distant alien world and discover its population is enslaved by rogue cybernetic intelligence. They attempt to help free the planet, only to learn it is on a deadly collision course with Earth. A mix of space travel anxiety, cyber rebellion, and approaching doom. Destroy All Planets. Star, Carl Craig. Rating, unrated. Thematic tone, monster mayhem, alien invasion, heroic creature redemption. Text as in the card. The giant flying turtle Gamera awakens to protect Earth as alien invaders arrive with plans for world domination. The aliens abduct 2 Boy Scouts to control Gamera, turning him against Tokyo. Eventually, the boys free him, leading to a climactic battle against squid-like extraterrestrials. Classic creature chaos with moral undertones of loyalty, control, and liberation. Sorry for the chatbot. But now I will show how one of the DVDs looked on both sides. Here we got side A of the DVD. Silver reflective DVD surface with a centered circular text ring. Printed text in dark blue on white ring reads, Disc 2 Side A, Spider Island / Wasp Woman. Holographic edge markings and subtle rainbow light refractions from the disc surface. Light cuffs and dust visible near center spindle area. Here we got side B of the DVD. The disc center label is light beige / cream with bold red lettering, arranged in a circular pattern around the hub. The text reads, Disc 2 Side B Prehistoric Planet / Prehistoric Women. The typography is simple, clean, and uniform. The red color stands out vividly against the pale disc interior. Around the plastic hub there are faint etched manufacturing marks, including serial code numbers and Taiwan and IFBL 604, showing factory origin and production authenticity. The disc surface shows subtle rainbow reflections, typical of DVDs viewed under natural light. Notable manufacturing details. Taiwan indicates manufacturing location. IFBL 604, optical media mastering code. Additional faint laser-etched serial numbers. Part of batch identification. Made for the 50 movie pack science fiction classics collection. Implied by previous discs.